Welcome everyone to our By the Book YouTube channel. I'm absolutely delighted to start our interviews again for 2022 with some fabulous Irish authors. And today I'm joined by Dolores Keaveney, who's a children's book author and was probably one of the first people to self-publish in Ireland. I'll let Dolores fill us in more about that and her journey as a self-published children's book author. Welcome, Dolores. How are you?
Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you for having me. I'm very good. Yeah, I started writing a book in 2009, and I'm just finished my 17th picture book. It's self-published. That is, I had just got one traditional published book during the whole 17. I love self-publishing. It's just a challenge to me, and it's not really for the faint-hearted. But I liked it. I liked the fact that I could go out and sell my own books, because before I did the books, I never really intended writing a book, but you just go with the flow, and it came about accidentally, and I just went along with it, and it was a challenge. And I knew Benji Bennett. Benji is a great friend of mine, and he was the very first person that I knew ever. He's a hugely successful self-published author, and he's sold 1 million books. I think I saw recently that he sold 1 million books. I didn't sell 1 million books, but for me, it's not about selling books. It's about creating the books, and it's all about nature and educating children particularly about bees. And if I can just educate a few children, that's my goal at this stage, you know. Self-publishing, there's a lot of people self-publishing now, and it's fantastic, because the only one drawback of self-publishing is getting it out into the public. And that's you can write the books, you can illustrate them, you can get them printed, you can get them edited, which is seriously the most important thing you have to do when you're writing books or self-publishing. You've got to get them right. You don't want mistakes in them, and then you can order them, you can get them printed. It's the getting them out there that's the challenge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've actually been quite successful in getting them out there. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, or maybe some tips for others.
Yeah. Well, what I do is, when I have a book now. I couldn't launch anyone last year, and actually I got a publisher in Australia, and that book I couldn't launch it, which is a pity, because it's past now. That chance is passed from me, even though it did sell maybe 6,000 or 7,000 books, which I don't know where, but that's what he told me it sold, without very much, the whole place was locked down. What I do is, when I write the book, I try and have a good launch in a public area. Like locally, I'd have it in my usual place, which is Belvedere House. It's down the road from me, and it's a beautiful area, and I would invite people to come and do to the launch. That's what you have to do. You have to physically invite people, and you have to try and get as many people invites out as possible, no matter how you do it, whether it's social media or whether you do an invite and post it out. I don't know. I used to do that years ago, but I think that's in the past. Anyway, I would get as many as I could into the launch, and then that would nearly cover my printing. And straight away, then you haven't got that big bill, for the printing. If you can get on the launch night, if you can sell as many books as possible, that's number one. Mm-hmm. And then locally, it's very difficult now. Even I can't get a distributor. Mm-hmm. And I have had, for my last book, I couldn't get one. Nobody would distribute it for me. There's really only 2 distributors in Ireland that I know of. One is Argosy, and the other one is, I think, Gill Distribute. I haven't really tried them yet, but I might just try them now. I always dealt with Argosy, and they just said no.
Oh,
They
wow.
don't seem to want to take anyone's books, like, by the looks of what they do. They must be taking someone's books, but they didn't take mine. But anyway, I've sold a couple of hundred books of Huey. I never got to launch it, and I didn't get to sell it. So I'm hoping now to start some fairs, like some nice little, not huge big fairs. The big fairs are very expensive. So you'd want to just pick some nice local fairs where you could sell some books. You can't be naive and think you're going to go out and sell thousands of books, because that's not going to happen. You can go out and you can chip away and sell them that way. But it means that you get most of the money, just the money that you've put into it. That's it, to print. That's what you have to spend, but you still get some money for them, whereas the other way, I'm not sure how it works. You don't get very much anyway. I know that much. You won't give up your day job if you have a publisher.
I know you've made some interesting points there, Dolores. I just want to ask you a couple of things. So firstly was about the distribution. So that's really interesting. I had heard that myself last year, unfortunately. Irish self-published authors are limited to just a couple of options, and those options seem to be disappearing. Were you given any definitive answer as to why?
No, sorry, we're not taking at the moment. I tried it 4 times. Every time I got that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that is unfortunate.
That's the pity about the self-publishing.
And with that, then, would you or have you looked at dealing with bookstores yourself?
I have. I have put my books into several bookstores. Not as much now because of the situation in the last 2 years. But if I now I have to start. I have this Huey Meets the Red Fox. It's a follow-up to the Huey the Apple Tree. It's almost ready to be printed. So now I need to start promoting it and trying to get it into the shops and into the libraries. The libraries are awesome. I keep saying that. If you can get your books into the libraries and then you can do a reading, I mean, that's where you'll get some money. That's you need to ring the libraries, find out who procures the book, and then, tell your story. And the only thing about the libraries in the beginning, the libraries were great. They bought directly from me. And here it is again. They can only buy now through a distributor. There's a great man up in Kilcock called John Tracy. It's called IES, International Education Services. And he has the sole, job of supplying the libraries now with children's books in particular. I don't know about any but my books anyway. So what I do, he buys the books from me, and the library buys the books from him. Now he will send out at the beginning, whenever, September or wherever, a list of books, all the books that he has for sale. And then the libraries buy. But I always write to the library to find out who's dealing with it, write to that person and tell her that the book is, give her the ISBN number or whatever, the details, and say it's available through John Tracy.
Yeah, you're very active.
Now you have to sell your book to John Tracy at a knockdown price.
Yeah.
But if you want your books to be out there and in the libraries and children to read them, you got to do that. That's the way I operate. I really don't think about the money end of it. I know that sounds a bit stupid, but for me, I want to get the book into the libraries.
You want to educate as well.
I want to educate, and I want to get them into the libraries. And I've kind of succeeded so far, because I did keep hammering away at that so that I could get that. That was one of my, when I started the first book, I had a kind of a bucket list, and I wanted to get the books into the libraries. And I wanted to read in the libraries. Yeah. And I did. I went around the country. I could get into my car during Children's Book Festival, which is in October. there's the whole month of October is taken up by readings in libraries. From like 30 days, like I'd be gone for the 4 weeks, like I could have 3 or 4 readings each week. Wow. And that is a source of income for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I suppose, Dolores, then on one hand, even though you have to sell in at a discounted price, your book, at least when it's in there, there's then these opportunities, not just to connect with your reader, but also
that's the angle. As a self-published author, that's the angle you have to go down. Yeah. Not that you're going to go out and make millions, because it doesn't work that way. Because there's so many fabulous books out there that never get to be distributed, which is a serious pity. You know, like, it's a pity that someone, some distributor wouldn't just take on self-published books and distribute them. Yeah. You know, there's an opening there for that, really. Distribute them around the shops. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So, no, it is. It's a lost opportunity, not just for the author, but for the reader. It is. To me, all along, for the years I've been doing it, I just am bamboozled. How, there's so many good books out there that are self-published, and they never get a chance to get to the shelves. They might get a few local shops and all that, And Benji Bennett proved it, because he won. His first book was so beautiful, Before I Sleep. He won the book award in Ireland. It was the best book, the best children's book in Ireland. It was beautiful, and he still sells it. It's still out there, and there are some lovely books out there. Yeah, no, especially absolutely. In the last couple of years. Now, maybe not when I started first, there wouldn't have been a huge amount of people self-publishing, but there's loads of people. I mean, loads. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, if you just even take a look at our own website and you see the collection and, our children book author collection is growing. And I mean, they're just beautiful, the books. Yeah, that's right. It's difficult to even. Websites are another area that people always ask me, will I get a website and I'll sell? I even find it difficult to sell on a website. People look at my website, but they don't buy the books. It's difficult enough to sell on a website alone. That's not where you need to get out and do it personally. I think that's, for me, that's what I need to do. And I'm really looking forward to. I'm getting older. Like, I'm not sure how long I'll continue, but I don't intend to give up. I will never go back to. I did the ploughing 16 times. I took a stand in the ploughing, which is, it's heavy work. Wow. Yeah. You have to go at 4 a.m. and set up and stay there all day long for 3 days and get your stuff out then. And the weather could be dreadful. And, but I still did that. And I also did the RDS in Dublin, which is it's the biggest fair in Ireland. I think I did it 8 times, that's incredible. Over the years. Yeah. And that's just 2 fairs. I traveled all over the country. It's just that's how I got to sell the books. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it's, getting out there, meeting your readers, getting the personal, touch behind the book. And then I suppose when people meet you in person, whether it's in the library or the fair, then they're more likely to go to your website and maybe buy. Probably, yeah. And then it's great when you go back the next year, like, you have these people coming, we're delighted you're back, and they want more books. And, and before I did the books, I used to paint on miniature watercolors, and I painted on slate. Okay. And I made slate mirrors. Lovely. And I went to fairs. It's kind of a thing. Like, I'm a kind of, I love the fairs and I love meeting people. And that's where I get a real buzz out of stuff. And it's probably, no matter what I'm selling, it's just, I'm out there selling and I'm meeting people. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's brilliant. And so, Dolores, the other thing I want to ask you about, because I've noticed you've been quite successful with it, because I follow you on Instagram. Well, there's a few things. You seem to have a nice ongoing media presence. So you seem to be able to have articles published about you in different places on different things. But,
you know, you've been, I think, quite successful in staying in the media. So how have you done that, or would there be tips you have for others?
Yeah, I do my own Instagram.
Yeah,
I do everything, and I'm an amateur. I sometimes don't know what I'm doing. I'd love with regard to the articles. I've tried hundreds of times to get on. We'll say the late, not the late, to get my book mentioned there, but I never did. It appeared on a shelf at the back once in 1 year, but I never really got. I used to be always wanted to get, you know, a bit of recognition, but I kept plugging away. And what I would do is I would write to the editor, or I'd Google. I spent a good amount of time, you know, researching to see who would be the best person to send a letter to, and I would explain exactly what I did, and it depend on the angle. Like the bees are always popular for me. It would depend on who you get. I've had great success with my local newspapers. All I have to do is lift up the phone and ring a girl to the two newspapers, and they will do an article for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just say, I'd like you to do any chance of you doing an article about bees or about me and about me. Now, I'll probably do it next week. I have Dee the Bee is really, it's, even though it's self-published, you know, it's published by a traditional publisher. He allowed me to get it into the libraries here, and they are going to use it as a story trail. You probably know about that. You might have seen it. Huh? The story trail is where I give them A3 images of spreads of the book, and they blow them up into a bigger size and put them somewhere on stakes out in maybe in a park. Like Kerry Library put it into Tralee Park last year, and the children can walk around and read and learn about the bees. And I could go in there and do a reading and walk along. And now the OPW are going to put it into some of their houses.
Lovely.
Like the like of Emo, which is over in Port Leash. There's a coffee shop there, and they're going to put it in around that area. And they might put it somewhere else. My own local Belvedere are going to do it. Galway Library are putting two of the books, both If I Were a Bee, my first one, and the second one. They're going to put them somewhere. I don't know yet. Mm-hmm. Kildare Library are going to put them they're going to rotate them around 5 different libraries, a story trail for a month at a time. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably go and do some readings. Now, I have to get publicity. I want to get some publicity for that, but I have a way of doing it in my mind. I just keep visualizing that book, that paper will do the interview for me. Mm-hmm. And then I contact them.
Okay.
And they will normally do it. I will contact my local paper covers the county of Westmeath and that area. I contact the paper and I'll ask them, would they be interested in doing a story on the story trail? Mm-hmm. Before that, if I'm launching a book, I ring them, I write to them. You send in, you do yourself a press release.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You do yourself a press release, just all about your book, what it's about and when it's going to be published. And you send that to as many papers as you can. And then you can find out who's in charge and ring them. Mm-hmm. Still basically the same thing like as trying to sell the book into a shop or sell it into a library. It goes back to the same thing. And that's what you do to get it into the papers. Now, the only two papers contacted me without me, only 2. Oh yes, 3. Recently, the Irish Independent contacted me, and it wasn't anything to do with books. It was got to do with an article about my money. But they did give me some credit and said I was an author, an illustrator, and it was just some questions about money. Mm-hmm. But I said yes, and I did it. Yeah. Then then the local council asked me to do a podcast, but a girl in Midland Radio 3 published it, put it out on the radio Monday. So I didn't have to look for that. It's like now it took me 11 years for someone to come and ask me, would I do it? Do you know what I mean? It's not an easy thing to get publicity, and it's a kind of a closed shop.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to give out and say anything, but to me, it is a closed shop. It's the same with everything, really. You know, it's a bit difficult.
But it doesn't, I love your attitude, even though on one hand you're aware of that, it doesn't stop you knocking on the doors.
No. I believe that we're all equal.
Yeah.
I believe that I have every right to contact the Pope if I feel like it. I believe that if they can, you know, I think everybody has the same chance, and you just have to get off your backside and do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. You know, and don't think, oh God, I'm not going to, what am I going to say? Just get on and say, you're the same as everybody else. That's the way I've always been like that. You know, really, I just can't, I don't see how we're any different to any other books, traditional books. Self-published books are the same. We're all their books.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, I just want to touch back as well, because I know from talking to you before, which is really good advice for others. You know, you talked about, because I suppose your books are, you know, they're very well finished, they're very well polished. So those tips around getting an editor, you know, making sure that when your book is in your hands, that it's as good as it can be. What advice would you have around that?
Well, straight away, the first bit of advice, even though I know it might cost you money, I think you need someone to edit it for you. It's the most important part of the book. Anyone can write a story. I mean, you can sit down and write it, but it could be full of mistakes. Do you know? I thought my husband has a history degree and a master's in literature, and he edited my books for a while. But I got a new editor last year. I found this very lovely girl from Mullingar called Kira O'Hare, and she's just started her own business, and I like supporting other people. So I said, I'll be your first client. So she has edited Huey Meets the Red Fox, and she will do some social media for me when I launch it, and I'll pay her to do that. Okay. And I'm very happy about that, because I wouldn't be 100% great at letting a book out without getting it edited. The commas might be in the wrong place and all that, and I need someone's help. You know, now some of my books I didn't get edited, and then another girl in Dublin, can't think of her, Aoife someone, she did several of my books. And then I met this young girl who was studying in Trinity, and she was studying children's literature, and she edited 2 of my books, because I kind of gave them to her as a project, you know, and she edited them, and that's what the word. But the editing is seriously the most important. Even in my first book, I had a mistake. The first time I went out, a woman came and said, you have a grammar mistake there. And I had, but I changed it when I reprinted. If I were to be 10 times, I'd say it was the bestseller of all, the first one.
Wow.
And it was, I put it's IT apostrophe S. It's something. It was like it is, in other words, but it didn't work.
Okay.
So I had to change it. I changed it.
And Dolores, can you tell me about your love for the bee and where that came about?
Okay. I always thought, you see, I have a really lovely house and a beautiful garden. I'm mad into gardening. I'm not as bad as I was, but I was really seriously bad over the years. I love gardening because I like getting my hands dirty. I love going out. I never wear gloves. The garden to me is, if I'm frazzled, which doesn't happen too often now, but over the years, if I wasn't feeling the best now, I was just a bit off. If I went to the garden and stayed out there and did some gardening, I'd be fine. So it's kind of getting back to the earth for me, because I'm an earthy person. I like, earth, mud, digging, lifting rocks, all that stuff, and the flowers. I was painting flowers. I was in an art group since 1972, and that's a long time ago. And I learned watercolors from a wonderful artist from Mullingar called Anne-Marie Levy. She is still alive, and she taught us art in the local community college at night. We had a group, and we stayed together, and we formed our own group, and we painted for years and years. I think we were 10 or 15 years together, and we used to have exhibitions, small ones, not big exhibitions. Then I branched out and I started painting, mostly flowers. Nearly everything I have has flowers in it. So I got fed up painting, and I decided, along the way I started meditating and doing stuff, and I got into kind of the spiritual end of stuff and a lot of meditating. And then I decided I'd like to do Indian head massage, Reiki, back massage, Hopi ear candling, and stuff like that. So I trained on all of those, and myself and a friend of mine set up a little business. But I really couldn't hack being indoors. So what I did was I left, and I came home, and I was still frazzled. I didn't know what to do. So I decided I'd do a bee course in my local, down the road. There's a guy giving a bee courses. So I went down there, and I was there for about 6 months learning about bees and taking bees out of beehives and in my bee suit. And I came home one night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I said, I'm after dreaming about, I had a poem in my head, and I had paper and bits of paper because of the meditation, the stuff we were doing. They used to tell you, write down stuff, right?
Okay.
So I wrote down the poem. And when I got up the next day, I said, God, I think I dreamt I wrote a poem in the night. So I looked at the page, and there the poem was. It was called If I Were a Bee, A Dance on the Sunflowers. It's the first poem in the bee book. So it all went on from there. My neighbour is a great artist, and I showed it to her. She said, sure, go on, why don't you make a book? And we did. We downloaded a website from America called Blurb, and I made the book, and I got it here, and tiny little book. It turned out lovely. And then I decided, I'll send it to a publisher now. Sure, I never got the magic yes.
Yeah.
I didn't mind. Then I came across Benji.
Yeah.
And Benji was after writing his little book, and his son had died, and I rang Benji. Now this is, don't be afraid to ring anyone, no matter who they are. I rang Benji, and Benji said, Dolores, get an old ISBN number from England and go up there to Eason's and tell them you have a book. Get it printed, do it. And sure, it's grand, do it, go ahead. So I did. And Eason's did stock it. I got it in. And that's how I started. And to be honest with you, I never really intended writing a book. I just, it wasn't on my agenda, because I probably thought I was no good at it, but I usually chance anything once, as long as I don't affect too many people.
Well, that's an incredible way to have started.
It was brilliant. I've had a fantastic 12 years. I work every single day in my studio.
Yeah,
I'm very lucky. I am so lucky. I have a studio. I got a grant from a leader to help me do it. Now I didn't. My books so got me a studio. Like the money I did collect, I had enough to build the studio, and I had my own van, and I'm a sole trader. I pay tax and whatever. I don't pay tax on books. You don't pay tax on children's books. But if you do readings and stuff, you do have to kind of add it up and see. You mightn't make enough to pay tax. But anyway, I've had a great little journey now, I have to say. And still, I've started illustrating another one for next year. So it's called Queenie the Queen Bee. It's really a big book. It's about a queen bee. So
very good. Back to the bees.
Back to the bees. I wanted to do 4 books about the bees, and I just got sidetracked in the beginning. I went on and I did about hens, and it was very popular. It was Jenny the Little Brown Hen. I did 4 books connected with that. You see, if I had them now, I could sell them flying, but I never reprint, in a sense. I tried to do a new book instead, and with self-publishing is costly.
Yeah.
You know, and at my age, I don't want to have a pile of books sitting around under the beds. Because I don't print, I don't do on-demand printing. I print 1,000 books at a time, or 500.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way I operate, because it's it's cheaper. You know, and I have a wonderful printer in Knock. Okay. They print for several girls that I know that sell, and you know them probably as well. They're called KPS Color Printing.
Okay.
They do all my printing, because I like, there's several ways like of printing books. Okay. Personally, I'm back down to this size, which is a 210 by 210. Is it millimeters? Is that? Yeah. And I like the book cover to be kind of rigid, not flopping in your hand, right? So I can pick that myself, and that's the one I use in all my books. You can have them stuck, the book with a spine, or you can have it thread bound. Now, to have it thread bound, it's €1,000 extra. Say if you get 1,000 books, and you just say, I want 1,000. You want to get them thread bound, which is a lovely way of doing them. Let's see now, you know what thread bound is. And most people do. It gives you a spine. Yeah. It's €1,000 extra. But this, to me, these books, this bee book, this was my first book, D the Bee, or If I Were a Bee. Yeah. And it has that stapled. It's much more economical to get them printed. And you can, if you have them laminated and everything, that book is so sturdy, you can spill water on it and everything. That's the best book. The other ones, for some reason, they crack in the middle when you open them too far. If you open a book like that, really out like that, a bound book, even if it's perfect bound, even stuck for a children's book, or even thread bound, it can snap. But this one, to me, in all the books I've done, is the best, the staple book. Okay, if you're putting it into shops, you mightn't see it on that's the only drawback. If it's in on a shelf like that, you mightn't see it. You know, if you have a whole lot of other books beside it with spines. Yeah. But to me, it's the best book. It's the best in the size and all in your hand for children. Okay, yeah. That's just my opinion. You know, it's not, everybody else mightn't think that, but for me, that's what I find it good. And even when I'm at fairs, like the people, I know by people when they pick them up, you know, they like the size and whatever.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, especially because you would have gone through different printers and different variations. And
well, I've only been in 2 printers. One was in Galway, and they closed, and the girl that worked there moved to this other place, and I've always done all my printing there. Yeah, you know, and I recommended her to lots of people. Yeah, and I mean, you kind of touched on it, but like how important it is for you to use local suppliers and local people to help you. How important is that for you? Well, it's very important, because except for the printing is the only one that I don't use local. I use my neighbor who lived beside me, Gary. He was my graphic designer. He's in Canada, and I still use him. I send all the stuff to him if I want stuff done. I always used another local graphic designer. If I get stuff copied or printed, I use my local printer. I use what else do I? Oh, the girl that's the editor, Kira, she's local. It's important to use your local if you can get the quality. Yeah, exactly. You know? Yeah, you have to weigh up the two. Yeah. And you know, the cost and all that. But cost, I go by my intuition. If my heart tells me that it's right, I'll just do it. Yeah, my head wouldn't really rule me as such. If I get that feeling that I'm a bit impulsive, like I don't think about it much. I wouldn't be mulling over stuff and in my head. I just make the decision and I do it.
Yeah,
And
I like that.
I don't think about it. I just try it. If I took this mad notion, you know, like my husband sometimes looks at me and he does, not another one, not another one, he said.
Yeah, we have the same dynamic in this
Would you
household.
stop? I just say, would you stop? What do you want me to do? Sit and look out the window? You know, you have to make it, you'd be dead if you were doing nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I would. I mean, you're a child, you know. You know, I'm well on there now. I'm ready to. No, but I don't believe in people. In a sense, it's not a nice thing to say to people, because I know my sister was a bit hurt, I think, when I said something recently that when you're retired, what do you want to be doing? Sitting looking out the window, but they're retired. But I suppose I've worked since I was 16. I haven't really stopped. I did have stopped to have children, all right. I had 3 children and I stopped for 10 years, but I went back to work then at different stuff. I hadn't a degree or anything like that, or, you know, I was a secretary, and then I started doing the crazy stuff.
Well, it's clear, obviously, for me anyway, that you're a very creative person, and that you've always been that way. And in a way, you know, in a way, this is an outlet for you. It combines.
I was always creative in the sense that when I was young, I learned how to sew, and I made my own clothes. I'd say bits of clothes, like I used to wear these caps that I made out of. I had an iron. If you had the iron and you put it onto material, you got a shape. You know, the shape of the iron, and then you sew them together and you get this cap. You can make it into a cap. And I used to make ponchos. You know, all you had to do was cut a hole in the head of it, in the head of the material. And then I made all my own. I think I made my own wedding dress and 5 bridesmaids' dresses. Then I used to do all my curtains when I was in in my other life. And so I did always sew, and I never really painted. I didn't get an opportunity. I was working on it when I was very young. It was only when I started doing night classes and stuff, you know, for something to do, that I started into the art.
Yeah.
You know, and that was where a bit of it. I wouldn't consider myself a great artist as such. I'm not great at drawing, but I can manage it. You know,
I think you can use colors extremely well.
Color is definitely one of my. And you know what I think I'd love to do is take up photography. Yeah. Because every day now when I go for walks, I try and take photographs of nature, and you know, I started doing little reels, and they're great, and they're only for 30 seconds, and you know, once you start doing stuff, you can see nature. You can see all the little hidden treasures. In nature when you're out, and you know, and that's when I started painting first. This was amazing. I was dumbfounded with the colors that I'd see and the shapes of the trees, and I used to drive my husband mad, and I'd say, look at that, isn't it amazing? Like, I couldn't see them before. Yeah. Do you know? And now I'd be really sharp with color and that, you know, different stuff.
Yeah, it helped you develop almost a third eye.
Yes.
Dolores, I want to ask then, just looking back on the last 11 years, if you thought about then, I know we've touched on some things, but I'm always thinking of authors that are starting out on the journey of, you know, becoming self-published. So if you were to look back, what would be 1 or 2 kind of key pieces of advice you would say to people to bear in mind?
Right. Well, first of all, you meet people and they say, I'd love to write a book. I'd love to write a book. I'd love to write a book. I think the first thing to do is to write the book. Even write the story down. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything. But if you're really serious about wanting to write a book, you've got to write it first. That's the thing, write it. And then you have to mull over it and see, is it, you know, can you change it? And then if you decide to go ahead, then you need the editor. And then if you want to, if you're not an illustrator, you've got to get an illustrator. And you have to get someone that will, actually nowadays, you need probably digital illustrations, because it's totally different now than I'm just doing my own art. And sometimes I think that prevents me from getting, sorry. prevents me from getting a publisher, because I want to use my own art and it's flowery and stuff. It wouldn't be very modern, so you'd need a good illustrator. No, don't be afraid to try stuff and to contact people and to ring people and to email people. Just don't be afraid. Just get that out of your head. You just, no matter who they are, even submit your book to every publisher that you can find. You'll find them all on Google. You can Google any, if you can get publishers in England and in Ireland, but submit the book. To submit it, have it in perfect, or the first 3 chapters if it's a novel. If it's a children's book, I think they usually want the whole lot, but make sure that it has no mistakes and that it's pretty good. You need to send the short letter, not in flouncy. Don't be saying, I'm a great person and you just send it to them and see will they take it. If you're self-publishing, if you decide to go down that road, then you have to just think about the cost and the launch that'll get your money back. If you can get a crowd, make sure you ask, if you want 100 people there, ask 500 people, or contact as many people as you can. Put it everywhere. Put it, then try and contact your bookshops, maybe local. First of all, try the distributor. Just you say, you have a book, but they want to know when it's going to come out. So that's down the line a bit. What advice? I don't think I would ever go into writing any sort of books and say I'm going to make money, because I don't think it's possible. You have the best authors in Ireland who gave up jobs when their books they got awards. They had to go back because there isn't a huge amount of money to be made in books. Mm-hmm. Okay, Benji makes money, but Benji puts in the groundwork. He goes out to all the fairs, because I know he's there when I'm there. We meet one another regularly. But he also does 20 times more than I do. He goes to England. He takes on big fairs. He has a business. Yeah. That's his livelihood. He started in his late 30s. This is his job. Yeah. For me, it's not a job. It's a hobby. Mm-hmm. Because I'm retired. I'm in my 70s. Yeah. But when I started, I was 60. Wasn't like everybody, you can do anything you want to if you put your mind to it, Mm-hmm. If you really want to do it and you have the energy, it's to have the energy to do it. Yeah. Is there anything else I need? You need the ISBN number if you want to sell it into the shops. Mm-hmm. And you get that from a crowd in England, and you just have to look it up. It's in Nielsen, and you can buy a barcode and everything from them. Much simpler now than it was, because you couldn't buy a barcode from them when I was doing them. I had to get someone else to make a barcode. But now you just click on and pay the money. And, in the beginning, I bought 10 ISBN numbers. I really had, I had only one book, but I bought the 10 ISBNs. They were only €80, £80. That time they were about £80 each now.
I know. It's definitely changed. No, that's a really good summary, and I do think you've touched on a lot of good points, especially at the start. Yeah. About putting yourself out there. Yeah. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. You're just as good as everybody else. You have as much a chance as anyone. Mm-hmm. It only depends on the way you do it, and it's not. And never ever be afraid of rejection, because if you are, you're in the wrong job, because you could get rejected 20, 30 times. You've just got to be pig-headed and determined. Yeah. And just keep plodding on, and one day you might just get the magic yes for a publisher if that's what you want. Mm-hmm. But to be a self-published author and author and sell books, you've got to put in the work. It's like everything. If you want to be a success, you have to work. Mm-hmm. You'll never be like, it's like a joke about the lottery.
this man was going around saying, Jesus, I wish I could win the lottery. I wish I'd win the lottery. Jesus, I wish I would win the lottery. And Jesus said back to him, it'd be a help if you bought a ticket. So it's like, if you don't put in the work, it won't work. You know?
So true. Yeah. Yeah. And even if it doesn't work the first time or the second time.
People say, oh, have you costed your work? I never cost me work. I don't know whether you do or not, but I'd never sit down and cost my work and see, am I making money? But that's different for me because I am not depending on it for my livelihood.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I take the view sometimes like the long-term view too, you know, so I don't look at it today as in, well, you know, what is it looking like today? I'm taking a longer term view on what I want to do, what I want to achieve in, you know, in 5 years.
Go ahead.
You can't really value something in 5 years today. You just have to have your vision of where you want to be, and today's work will get you there. And then, you know, then you're kind of creating value long term.
Yeah, that's right. Because in the beginning, I wanted to do a book, put it out there, sell it myself, and get into the libraries and do readings. And that was my goal. And I did it.
Yeah.
Now I suppose I'd like my story trail to go around more libraries. That's one of my things. I had my book that I wanted to go, I had it on a bucket list for years that I wanted to have a book worldwide distribution, which I did with D the Bee. Only it was in America. You can get it in any country in the world. It's online in loads of shops in different shops in America, Canada, all those shops. So that was to me worldwide distribution. You know, even though in Ireland, it was in all the shops in Ireland. I got it into all the shops in Ireland. But then things change and you really have no control over stuff because of what happened in the last 2 years, it has actually scuppered a lot of people and there's a lot of people they're not where they were back then, and they'll never will be because they're probably in different jobs, and it has been a bit of an awakening for people as well, and it kind of makes for me it's getting back to the earth, get back to nature. You know, things were a bit out of control, I thought myself.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You know, I still think we need to just step back. You know, you don't need all the stuff that you want and that you have. You know, you can live very well with a lot less. Life is just about now and living and what you can get out of it now. Yeah. Because you never know what's around the corner, and you really have to stay focused in the now and live it and enjoy it and be happy with yourself, I suppose. That's the most important thing. You know, if you're happy with yourself, you can't be happy with anyone else. You know, that's what I think. That's just me now. Don't mind what I'm saying. I'm just telling you what I feel about the way things are, you know.
It's a lovely perspective.
Yeah, it's good. It took me a long time to get this far. Like, it's a life journey. Life is a learning process. And like, you have good things happen to you and bad things happen to you. And all of those things are there to teach the lessons, I suppose. Lessons and different lessons, whatever they are, they're there for a reason. And you can look at them one way or another. If you look at them a bad way, you'll end up in a bad place. If you try and see what's it teaching me, what's it telling me, probably learn some stuff from that, you know.
It's been such a pleasure to chat, and I look forward to continuing to watch your.
And thank you for having me. At least we got there this time.
I know, and I really appreciate your time. So thanks, Dolores.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Okay.
Yeah, and the best of luck with your writing career and your everything and your books and your everything.
Thanks, Dolores. Appreciate it. Take care.